This conference will now be recorded.
I don't see the PowerPoint.
All right, give me just 1 second.
Let's have a great meeting.
John, would you share the screen again with me, please?
I gave you the screen.
All right, got it. They changed the system all the way around, so it's making it a little more complicated. But good afternoon, everybody. If you're just joining the call, we'll be starting in just a few minutes. All right. So, John, we now have about 45 people on the call. If it's okay with you, we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, great. Well, welcome to spring, everybody. Thanks for joining the first spring conference call from the Rocket Group. My name is Lorenzo Marquez with the Marquette Group, and it is a pleasure to be with you all once again. We have a very special guest today who is leading our ambassador group for the operations team. But before we get started, just know that this conference call is being recorded and will be available for you to share with your team should you find it valuable through our website over the next couple of days. And it is also being run under our Antitrust Statement. So if you need a copy of that statement, please feel free to contact us and we'll be able to share a copy of that, or you could also find it available on our website at rocketsusa.com. So once again, thank you for joining us. We are going to ask that you please either mute your phone or your computer audio so we're not interfering with any background noise. And if you are wanting to participate or bring any insights to the table, please make sure that your phone is unmuted. In the past, we used to go with free conference call, and we were able to essentially mute everybody, and you guys had the opportunity to unmute yourselves. But now we are trying this system once again since it's been revamped, and we ask that you please make sure that either you mute your phone or your computer so we can all hear very clearly. On the agenda today, we have current topics. We are also going to have our guest speaker, who is leading our ambassador program, lead the conversation around operations, and then we're also going to be discussing coverings. So with that said, John, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm excited about this call. We have a lot of topics to cover, but we want to make this an open forum collaboration so we can get really have a real good networking call. The reason we switched to GoToMeeting back so we can record both the audio and also have the PowerPoint in the recording. So that's what you're going to see on the website. So that's why we're doing that today.
Great. So as we said, if you guys will be able to share this conference call with your teammates as soon as we are done with it, we'll be posting on our website. If you haven't had a chance to look at our website lately, it's been revamped with a lot more content, a lot more functionality. So make sure you check it out and stay connected to us. So the first thing that we're going to address is we're going to talk and just give you guys an update about the situation with our friend, partner, and family member, Dajuan, who's been heavily impacted with the hurricane, or not hurricane, that was me a few years ago. Sorry, with a tornado in Nashville. So I know that John has kept in very good contact with him over the last couple of weeks. So John, can you share an update with us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Dajuan is on the call, so I'm going to have him hop on. But I just want to kind of give an update and really just touch on one thing that is just amazing and shows the power of the Rockheads. So a lot of members have really stepped up and helped Dajuan with those few cool things that have happened. We did a GoFundMe, and really within the first day, we beat our goal of raising over $10,000 for his employees, and it was really important to Dajuan to make sure that the employees that are really impacted by the event get taken care of. So we're going to be cutting them a check. I'm actually going to go visit next week and personally deliver that and work with Dajuan to kind of help through some transitional things. Another cool thing that's really happened, we actually have a few members in Nashville. We have a new member, Todd from Intellistone, who's a new member in Nashville, just joined our group. And then we have Gene DeSong from Southern Stone. They really stepped up and are helping Dajuan manage his current client base and fabricating for him while he gets back up and running. What also is cool is Dajuan was able to really quickly find a new location to help get set up. And one of our partners, Poseidon, is going to be integral in helping him get going. So he's actually going out to help him and visit next week as well. So really the power of this shows really what collaboration can do, and we've really taken it to a next level. So I want to thank everybody. Is Dajuan on the call? I think he was texting me, so I just want to make sure.
Hey, John. Yes, I am.
Oh, hey, good. So I'm going to turn over the mic to you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I just want to really just thank everybody for all the calls. I mean, my phone hasn't stopped ringing for the last week, and texts and just messages. So thank you guys so much. This is what's actually helping me through this mess. You know, it's so difficult. You go to bed one night and you're on top of the world, and then the next morning you wake up and there's nothing there. It's all gone. So it's been a rough ride. It's tough, but you know, with the help of all you guys, friends, and just people reaching out, it's made it so much easier. We're all positive. We're working hard just to climb this mountain. As John said, I found another shop. We're just signed the lease. We might be able to move in this week, this weekend, and start at least building a shop. So people have been absolutely amazing. So I just wanted to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Dajuan, for sharing that.
Yeah, and just one thing, if I can, just help other people, other Rockets members, please check with your insurance companies that you have adequate insurance. I mean, Southern Stone Gene, just right after it happened to me, he found out that, he doesn't have enough. Taste down in Savannah, just a bunch of our people, they always say insurance is good until you need it. So please go back to your brokers. Make sure that your contents is adequately insured, that your stock outside is insured. Because, man, nature is powerful. It picked up containers. It smashed everything. There's nothing left. So just if this could be a lesson to each, or if I can help somebody else, hopefully it will never, ever, ever happen to anybody, any other of our friends. But if it does, please make sure that you guys are insured. I mean, it is just, that's going to make the difference between either making it or not. So that's the only other little bit of advice that I can give if it's a lesson to be learned out of this mess.
Yeah, and we have a great insurance partner. No pressure to use them, but they will, if you want a second set of eyes on your policy, which I always recommend. Armada Risk Partners, who's a great sponsor and supporter of ours, is available to do that. So I would take advantage of that service we have, and a second set of eyes never hurts, because sometimes the broker that you're currently using isn't looking at it the same way.
Yeah, perfect.
Well,
thanks,
Dajuan,
John.
thank you, Dajuan, for being with us today. I know that you hosted us last September at your shop, and we had a great time walking through it. And as a person that is always helping and open to taking care of others, as you said, you go to sleep one night and you wake up and there's nothing the next day, and sometimes it's really hard to receive that support and that help, or even to admit that you need support and help. And so we thank you for your leadership, and we're with you in supporting your team. And this is a time of need. Know that we're all here for you, and please make sure that you know you have our full support as well as your teams.
Thank you so much. I'll definitely tell them. And once again, thank you so much for the GoFundMe and everybody's contribution. I mean, that's going to make a big difference in a lot of people's lives, you know, that are hurting right now. I was actually lucky to be able to find jobs for most of my people. So that's a big thing off of my shoulders. So, you know, but thank you once again for everybody's generosity.
Thank you, Dajuan, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
And as we continue talking about natural disasters and other things that are happening in our world, obviously we feel it's very important to not take away from the presentation Ed Hill has for us, but it's also very important for us to start addressing the situation that's happening today with the virus. And day by day, there's new improvements and new news coming out, and eventually it will certainly start hitting the economy and affecting business and profitability and labor and installations, consumer confidence and whatnot. So without being too alarmed or too reactive to the situation, we obviously want to bring this point to discuss as part of our open mic conversation. Understanding that today where we are is we see that the market is down, similar to the 2008 decline. There is still consumer confidence in growth from overall retail sales standpoint by the National Retail Federation. But there's also an expectation that about 25% of consumers are avoiding going into retail stores as they're trying to minimize the impact or the risk of containing the virus. And while we're not here to provide medical advice or legal advice or any kind of other support, we are here to discuss strategies and some of the thoughts that you guys may have related to your own businesses, as well as to provide some advice on what we feel should be best practices to be prepared in case that this thing results in something like what is happening in Italy. I can tell you that personally in Houston, we only have had 14 cases of the epidemic or the virus in a population of over 5 million. But today, as of noon, they canceled the Houston Livestock Rodeo, which brings in about 120,000 people daily. So there's one thing with consumer media and the consumer being scared of being in public places. And a different thing is to have factual information as to how it can affect the economy as well as each individual business. So we know today that there has been a significant boost to e-commerce due to more people being afraid of being in retail stores. And if you guys have seen the news or have talked to your significant others about buying toilet paper, Purell, cleaning products, those things are either being price gouged through Amazon or they're completely out of stock. So as more things continue to close down and more people have the time to be at home, they're spending a lot more time on e-commerce, conducting the purchases they had planned to conduct or to buying the things they had planned to buy, doing it through online. So we wanted to just share some insights with you guys and then open up the floor for discussion briefly so we can proceed to Ed Hill. But it's very important that you please communicate with your employees and ask them if they're feeling sick to minimize the risk that they may have in bringing anything to your shop. We're not necessarily saying measure their temperature before they come in every day, but just continue monitoring your own situation. It's also a really good time to evaluate the product offering and the current sales that you have, as well as your inventory levels, because inventory levels will be affected out of China as well as Italy for at least the next 3 months. Right now, vessels are shipping out of both countries. Well, Italy is shut down, but vessels are at about a 20% or 80% capacity. And so you will expect to see freight costs increase as well as product being delayed. So as your salespeople are selling products that you may not have a lot of inventory on, it's very important to make sure that you're communicating with them to ensure there's no customer issues with satisfaction, product being delayed, and you being able to collect on sales. It's also very important to start looking into your consumable supplies and make sure that you have a backup plan to ensure that you have everything you need for your shop to operate accordingly, depending on the supply that's available from your different vendor partners and things that you need to conduct your business. I personally recommend that you develop a consumer approach that makes them feel, or a customer approach that makes them feel about you or your company or your installers being in their home. If people are afraid of going into a grocery store or going into a Home Depot or going into a retail brick and mortar store, they also will be afraid of having strangers coming into their home because they don't know what that person has been or that person has been exposed to. So if you have ways to minimize the consumer alertness as it pertains to strangers being in their home installing their countertops, please make sure you bring those forward and you address those with the consumer to ensure that they feel safe when you come into their house. Some people have, gone through the use of booties, and other people have gone through the use of gloves. A few recommendations would be to have your installers wash their hands before they come into the house, just to make sure the consumer feels safe when they walk into the house, as well as have your installers completely clean the surface with any kind of disinfected product once they leave, to ensure the customer feels safe with their product. It's also a great opportunity for you guys to start thinking about your aftercare products. So products like Invisiblock that could essentially help the consumer clean the surfaces after installation would be a great time to start bringing those forward and start ensuring that customers feel safe once you leave the home. And last but not least, this is the time to start thinking about your web digital strategy, because we will see over the next 3 months that consumer brick and mortar stores will decline and they will be looking for those purchases online. And so you have to make sure that you're capturing as much as you can off of this before we go into a recession in the near future. So with that said, I'd like to just ask a few questions to our members and see if anybody has any feedback, any insights, anything they're doing differently, or if anybody thinks that this is not really going to be a threat to their business. So I'll go ahead and open up the mic. Anybody have any insights? I think I've been muted for the last 20 minutes and nobody heard anything I said. All right, guys. This is our opportunity for us to collectively figure out if we do anything, if we just sit quietly and not do anything, or if we have anything to be concerned about. So we would appreciate if anybody could come forward and share some of their thoughts with us.
Hey, Lorenzo, this is Brian. Can you hear me?
Hey, Brian. Yes, sir.
So I had a conversation with, it was a non-Rockhead fabricator in the industry yesterday, and one of her employees came out and said, well, what are you guys doing to protect us from the coronavirus? And this was, a day after there was three confirmed cases in Cleveland. So she met with her HR attorney and Employers Association representatives, and being in the industry we're in, the biggest red flag that she ran into was her installers not being in the customer's homes, but because they share a vehicle. Sometimes the same crews aren't in the same vehicles as well, and what she found was she is supposed to be providing the time and the cleaning materials for the employees to completely disinfect their vehicle at the end of each day, and then doing the same thing at the beginning of each day to try to prevent the spread of germs. So I haven't validated that, but that's just something that it sort of made sense of things that we may have to. It's just one example of something that we may have to do as employers to try to keep employees in a safe and healthy working environment.
Thank you, Brian. That's really important because obviously right now, everybody as business owners has to be concerned about people utilizing this as an excuse to either, not show up to work or a legitimate excuse because schools may be closing. So there will definitely be an impact as it pertains to labor, and it's important to start coming up with a plan that you guys can all put into place. So thank you, Brian, for sharing that.
You're welcome. I would like, if there's anybody out there that has had employees raise concern or schools that have been impacted where employees are not able to show up for work because they have to provide childcare because childcare establishments are also closed, how they're handling that.
Does anybody have any feedback as to how they're handling childcare or any kind of overall practices when you have force majeure or weather-related closings, how you guys react to that when it pertains to your employees? Should we rename
Brian,
this from the, we can change this name if you guys want from the open mic to the silent mic call. It's easier. Go ahead, Brian, sorry.
My name's Brian. I'm with Stoneworks in Florida. I got on the call kind of late, but I heard you talking about coronavirus. We've done some things here. We've posted around our company in reference to our employees, that if they're going to be traveling internationally and or, cruise destination, that we are requiring them to get screened, for infection prior to returning to work, to protect everyone else in the company. We've also posted, around our company, just hand washing, that kind of stuff, to protect ourselves against the coronavirus. So I guess we're just trying to, make sure that our employees, are aware of, best practices to try to avoid it.
All right, guys, sorry, I had to, people were trying to comment and they were, Brian, I think I muted you again. People were trying to comment, but they were all muted. So if you are wanting to contribute to the call and don't necessarily have a lot of background noise, you can use pound 51 and that'll allow you to unmute yourself.
Right now?
Go ahead, we can hear you. There's somebody that's playing background music, so we're trying to figure out where that is. So just bear with me for a second, and I will make sure that phone is muted. So go ahead and keep talking. My apologies.
Yeah, I've got a question. Outside of taking payment over the phone via credit card, is anybody else using any other systems and methods for doing online orders?
Get her oxygen they can't at higher capacity at home.
Thank you for holding.
Sorry, guys.
We look forward to talking with you soon. Please hold the line, and we'll be right back with you.
Let's figure out who joined the call and give him hell tomorrow for putting us on hold and then interrupting our...
Lorenzo, this is Brad Burns. It looks like it might be caller 18, if you can see that on your
18?
side. It might be. It keeps kicking in saying it's 18 talking.
You got it. All right, perfect. Thank you. That's it. All right, we're free to talk. Thank you, guys.
Hey, Lorenzo.
Good.
Lorenzo?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, this is Sean from the Youre Stonecraft in Washington, D.C. I just want to share that this issue with the installers and so forth is already on a Home Depot radar. I got an email today from a DSM in our area. They are questioning to find out, trying to get the feedback if any of the customers have pushed back with the installers or measure guys not installing it. So I just want to share with that. The only thing we have done in our company, just continue to informing all our associates about the same guidelines that the CDC has issued. So they make sure that everybody is aware of it and everybody hopefully adhere to that.
Great, thank you, Sean. If you could share a copy of that communication with us, that would be fantastic.
Sure.
Hey, Lorenzo.
So, go ahead. Yes, caller 23. You're on. You're on.
Yeah, this is Matt with Capital Granite. I wanted to ask, outside of taking payment over the phone, what are other people doing out there for online payments? We do have a messaging system we could use, but I just wanted to see what other best practices were out there.
I don't know if anybody has any insight to share as far as taking payment.
As far as from a Rockhead standpoint, we use authorize.net with our credit card service to accept payment. So I think you could. A lot of companies are using that for accepting payment via credit card, via online, things of that sort. Authorize.net.
Yeah.
Hey, John, just Paul. I think Matt's bringing up the question because we're trying to automatically be able to receive somebody's shopping order. In other words, if you're using Quote Countertop and they're saying, okay, I like the price of this thing, how do you go about getting a shopping cart and get the cash register working while you're sleeping and they're playing online?
Use Marquette Services, your web design, and they'll help you set up that shopping cart on your website.
Paul, this is Brad Burns. They're coming out with a new version that's you're going to be able to accept payment through Quote Countertops at some time. So contact Quote Countertops with that question.
Paul, if not, we can set up an e-commerce extension to your site, and we can just reference the order number, the quote number, and they can just submit a payment on that. So I'll call you after that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so does anybody else have any other concerns or any other insights, anything else they've heard related to Corona? Is this just a media play? Is this really truly going to affect your business? What are your thoughts on that?
Paul from Capital here again. I've been watching this really closely because I've been in this business too long to know that too much of my retail sales are driven by consumer sentiment, and this is obviously going to affect it. I'm going to give you the counter argument to all of the things that have happened in our past of the last 20 years or so, whether it be SARS or Ebola or whatever. We are in an election year, and you have to take things with a grain of salt. And I'm a numbers guy, and I take a look at the numbers. So I seem to think that the truth is somewhere in between, that you have to be precautious, but at the same time, I believe this is an opportunity for the media to grip onto something that could potentially tube the economy and send us into a recession. They're aware of it, and there's a lot of fear-mongering going on as a result, which I am fearful for. But at the same time, has anybody seen the Surgeon General who came out on TV day before yesterday and said that unless you're in that age group of 60 and beyond, where the average death rate is 80 years old, then on average, then this is really not a concern, but you need to be precautious to keep from spreading it. So if anybody's got anything to the counter on that, I'd love to hear it, because I believe this is totally political. There, I said it.
I totally agree with you, Paul, as well. That a lot of this is driven politically. Just to let you guys know, from an economy standpoint, there's a lot of factors going on. There's also the oil rate is really driving a lot of, actually it's probably a worse impact on the economy than the coronavirus. I reached out to ITR Economics. They're actually putting on an impromptu talk on Friday, and I'm going to be sending out a email blast to everybody to if you want to get on that call. There is a charge. They're giving us a slight discount as Rockheads for using their newsletter and their speakers, but I think it'd be a really cool thing if you can make it. I'll be sending that out, but they're going to be talking about the 3 factors that are affecting the economy and how the coronavirus what they predict will have an impact. So it should be a good talk on Friday from some expertise in that area, which would be really cool.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your input. So we'll keep on monitoring. If anybody else has anything else to share related to the topic, please let us know. And go ahead. Sorry.
Lorenzo, Lazarus from Granite Plus. If I'm not mistaken, the WHO just mentioned that this went to pandemic now, meaning that pretty much every convention, every big arena, everything's going to start getting put under government control. And I agree with Paul, but I agree with everything else above, because I believe this is not only political, this is their way of trying to figure out how to hurt us and see how far we'll let them go and control pretty much everything. I also think that this is an economic recession that they're playing with, and possibly even a possibility of them wanting to change currency. Because there is a lot of talk about how currency is being moved around and people are touching it, and not to touch cash and not to do this. This is also probably a ploy to go into digital currency and change our fiat, because right now the American dollar is being inflated as we speak, and it's going to pop like a big balloon. And that means everyone else's economy is going to pop. This is my opinion. I'm not an expert at much other than listening and researching here and there. But I don't even know if we're going to have. I belong to 3 other different types of associations for different businesses, and all our conferences that are coming up in April have either been moved or canceled. And some of them are much bigger than coverings. So, and that's a lot of them just posted those things on their website today because of the WHO. So I think it's a lot of fear that they're trying to instill in the American people to see how much what they got to do to keep control of every situation. So.
Well, thanks for that input, Lazarus, and this certainly can spark another topic of this discussion and conspiracies and conspiracy theories, and it's all great and valuable. So we certainly know that there is a threat. We'll continue monitoring the situation, and if anybody has any output or information to share with us, please make sure that you share with the group. But for now, I'd like to kind of change the tone a little bit and introduce our guest speaker, who is Ed Hill, and is joining us today to talk about the fundamentals of synchronizing your information as well as material flow. Ed has decided to join us as part of the Synchronous Solutions group. He is an operations ambassador, has vast experience in the topic, and throughout the course of the year, as part of our ambassador program, we will be holding monthly conference calls on topics related to operation performance and operation excellence. So we ask that you please invite your operations teams to join those calls. We will have a published schedule, which you see on the screen now. But today we have Ed himself live with us. And from that, I'll let Ed take it away. John, if you could share the screen with me, that'd be great. Ed.
Everybody hear me now?
Could hear you, Ed, but you had a bad echo there.
Right. Ed, we can't hear you. Hello? Ed? Ed, you probably have your laptop on and your microphone on your camera. So if you could turn off your video camera and just use your phone to speak. John, are you on? John?
Come on, can you hear me?
Yes. Somebody shut off go to meeting.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right.
There's still a lot of background noise, Ed, so if you could please make sure that you have your computer off on audio or muted on audio, please.
All right, how's this working now?
It's still a lot of background noise. So turn off your webcam and just use your phone.
You want to turn off the mic, like turn the volume all the way down off the computer.
Correct. Or just turn off the webcam completely. All right, Ed, you should be good to go now. Amanda, if you want to unmute all, you should be good to go.
Lorenzo, can you hear me? Hello?
We have Ed.
Can you hear me, Lorenzo?
I'm speaking from my telephone.
Okay. Maybe, yeah, just shut your computer down and talk from the telephone. Not sure what happened. We can't hear you now, Ed.
How about now?
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. Am I ready to go? How about now? All right. How about now?
Ed, what are you speaking on currently? Your phone and the computer's on? Ed?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, sounds good.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello? Hello?
Ed, we can hear you, Ed.
Anybody hear?
We can hear you. Yes. Ed, we can hear you.
Hello? John, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me. John, thumbs up if you can hear me. All right. Well, I can't hear you all, but I will continue talking. John, wave to me if I'm not coming through. So thank
You're
you.
coming through good.
To be with you today. I'm looking forward to the ambassador program. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you all. So today we're going to talk generally about synchronous flow. It is a management science that applies to the movement of information and material through a system. So every business of any kind moves either information or material or both through the system. So we want to talk about the basic concept of that. It begins with the that book, The Goal. Many of you have probably read that, written by Dr. Eliyahu Goldratt. The book was written back in 1984, and I had a chance to work with Dr. Goldratt at Clemson University for a number of years and learned a lot about this management science and got to see it all over the world. We've done this in over 50 fabricators, countertop fabricators across the country over the last almost 20 years. John, can you go back upstream to the questions?
And
Earlier slide. There we go. So I wanted to get some feedback, if we could get some discussion going, if the technology works. First question is, how do you deal with waves of material moving through your shop? So it's we call it a roller coaster sometimes. It's one day you have a ton of work and the shop is overwhelmed, and maybe a day or so later there's a valley and there's not much. Of course, the number of hours worked remains the same, irrespective of how much work there is to do. Do you experience that? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
I'll kind of chime in to just get things going. When I was running my shop in Cleveland, that was probably one of the biggest challenges that we had, which was handling. One day we had 200 or 300 square feet. The next day we have 1,000 square feet, and then how to handle that was probably one of the biggest challenges. I'm actually really curious to hear your recommendations in that area for sure.
Anybody else?
Buffer management.
Somebody said.
I don't know if you heard, but someone said buffer management.
Was that a question?
Maybe you can sound like that was Deepa. Can you expand on that a little bit, Deepa?
Well, I don't know how. I certainly we don't know what to do, but we kind of know that it's coming in production, because if we have templated less, that means we know that we are going to have less production. If we have templated a lot, then we know that we have to plan for this influx of jobs. So then we know if the sales is down, then the templates are down. So it's all connected, but we kind of have a forecast based on sales of like what's coming up.
So how did you measure how much to load in to know that you had a level load?
Throughput.
Who said that?
The ringer in the room.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk more about exactly what throughput is in just a moment. But so you experience that, do you find that you're able to deal with it if you use some of these techniques that some of you are experiencing now that you're using? Does that solve the problem?
No, it doesn't solve it. We're clueless on what to do when it happens. The installers are mad if they don't have jobs. We might be overwhelmed one week, and then the next week they don't have jobs because we don't, that it messes everybody up and it messes up the morale.
In a custom business, one simple answer that solves as we all can. There is no solve every problem. When you have higher priced products moving through the plant at the same time that you have lower priced products, although they may be generally very similar square feet, then that always will create a challenge. But there are some techniques that we've learned, I'll talk about in a moment, that do help a great deal.
Comments about waves of material?
Any other comments about waves of material? All right, well, let me ask you this one.
How can you be sure?
How can you be sure that a given number of square feet that you feed into the system or that you get out of the system will produce a desired profit?
Hey, this is Derek Tryon. The one way I've we don't pay our bills yet.
Oh my gosh. This is crazy.
Eric, we didn't hear that. There was some wind noise, it sounded like.
For this call, I'm going to make a suggestion, and then we're going to try to work through some of these technology. Maybe I'm going to put everybody on mute, and maybe just give us a quick overview, or give us an overview on this topic area, and that's going to lead into how we're going to run these operations calls and do breakout sessions in our meeting with the ops team. But maybe let's just do a kickoff today. I'll put everybody on mute, and then we'll find out how to control this better.
All right, fair enough. So, can you hear me, John?
I do. I just got you unmuted now.
Okay, good deal. All right, so the second question having to do with square feet, that's the common, the standard metric that most companies use in selling, as well as loading the plant, as well as measuring performance at each process step, and even scheduling install. It is a dimensional metric, and we've begun to use a different one called Throughput that someone mentioned, and I'll tell you more about that. The last question is, Murphy lives, in our business, it's a custom operation, and virtually every job is unique. So how do we, and Murphy lives, stuff happens. People are absent, machines break down, weather, you name it. Anything can happen to cause disruption. How do you know that you have the necessary capacity in place to be able to handle all these things? So synchronous flow is the method that we've gravitated to. I used to be a research director at Clemson University. That picture on the bottom right is Dr. Eliyahu Goldratt, who I worked with there at Clemson. That young fellow on the right has matured a bit over the last 20 or 30 years. The book, The Goal, if you haven't read that, I encourage you to do so. If it's been a while, I encourage you to read it again, because it is the root of this management science. In my experience at Clemson, that's of my research work and looking at the best management sciences all around the world. That one is the one that impressed me the most. So that's what I've been preaching and teaching for the last 25 years. Next slide. So, explaining synchronous flow in one brief slide, this basically does it. First thing we do is map the system. We use a lot of lean tools value stream mapping is one of those tools. And so we would map the process. And these are the functional steps that occur all the way from sales through gathering the information from the sale to make sure we know how to make the product, template, all the way through the process, through installation, and even addressing any quality issues and certainly collecting money. So we map that process, and then we strategically select a control point. There's a difference between a control point and a constraint. The constraint is, in any system, there always is one. There's one weakest link that determines the strength of the chain. In the countertop industry, the control point's always installed, because that's where your cash register rings. That's where you satisfy your customer. That's where everything comes to fruition. And we call that the drum, because we want it to function on a predetermined cadence. We want it to be consistent and methodical. We want it not to be highly variable day to day. And we assure that can happen by finitely scheduling that control point in a metric called throughput. $T is the symbol. Throughput is the measure of value added. And I'll get into a definition of that in just a moment. But it is truly the measure of what you do. You sell a product and you transform a raw material into a finished product to satisfy your customer. That transformation is measured in that metric called throughput. We also, using that metric, we plan, schedule, and track. So we do all three. We look to the future to determine how much capacity we need in place. We do that with a tool called the Protective Capacity Planner, PCP, and that tool helps us to know how much capacity to have in place and to assure that we can meet a certain financial goal given that demand and that capacity. Then with that information, we finitely schedule. We try to level load each day using dollars, throughput dollars, not square feet. Because we know that if we can achieve the given throughput dollars, that we will make our financial goal. Then we track that every day, every single day of the month. We know exactly how we're doing against those goals we set at the beginning of the month. Then if you look at the little graphic at the bottom, the drum, imagine that is installed. Those prior to it are the fabrication operations, template and such, all the way through. Those after it would be quality correction if necessary and collecting of money. That becomes the drum, the control point. All other functions' job is to serve that control point. So rather than each function attempting to be in isolation of itself and maximizing its own efficiency or productivity, to the contrary, each has visibility of the needs at the drum, and that function's job is to make sure it gets the drum what it needs when it needs it. Click the slide, please. So then we establish inventory buffers. Someone mentioned buffer management a moment ago. A buffer is a shock absorber. It's like your car traveling down a bumpy road. The bumps are absorbed by the springs and your shocks on your car to minimize the impact of the bumpy road. It's also like an insurance policy. You have an amount of insurance to protect you against some risk. Well, the risk is that the drum is interrupted. I don't want that to happen. So the amount of the buffer, always measured in time and not units or square feet or anything else, it's measured in time, is designed to protect that drum beat so it remains consistent. Click the slide, please. Then every day we manage those buffers. This is a behavioral change that's rather significant in any company that we work with. Usually a 15-minute meeting, usually held about 9 a.m. in the morning. And it is a point at which we look to the future. We're not so much only concerned about what did happen, we're concerned about what needs to happen. And we're looking at, based upon the day that a job is to be installed, we detect where it is today to determine if it's where it ought to be today. If it is, great. If it's not, then we take proactive action to assure that it gets to where it needs to be at the right time. And then we follow up the next day to make sure that got handled. We do buffer management for two reasons. One is we want to catch stuff. We want to catch it early. We want to catch it before it becomes a crisis, very proactive. And the second reason we do buffer management is we want to collect some data. We want to know what are the chronic things that happen to us that are occupying the time of our key people. So by collecting this data and analyzing it once a month, we're able to focus in on the real chronic issues and take, again, proactive action to prevent those fires rather than continuing to fight them every day. Next slide, please. So this concept in goal is called drum, buffer, rope. The drum is the cadence of the control point. That's what we schedule using throughput dollars. The buffer is the shock absorber that absorbs the variability that inevitably exists. And the rope is a signal from the consumption at the drum back to the gate. The gate might be template, it might be cut, it might be programmed. It depends on the particular company. And we assure that we are feeding in to the system the amount that we take out, and therefore we can control inventory and therefore control lead time. Click slide, please. So throughput is the measure of value added. Click it again, please. And go ahead and just click it through this slide. So it is calculated as the sales price of the job minus the investment in materials for that job. So if you look at it this way, click the slide one more time. So if you invested $2,000 in material for a job, and that job was going to be worth $5,000, then you really created $3,000 worth of value. One more click. And out of that throughput then comes all labor and all overhead, and obviously we hope have some left over for profit. The metric is very stable. It is very consistent. It is a heck of a lot better than square feet. That's not perfect. It's no more perfect than your pricing is. If your pricing is perfect, then throughput's perfect. But we focus in on how to increase value added. That is the basis of this synchronous flow approach. Okay, click please. So we use it for two reasons. I mentioned this earlier. One, it's more reflective of the content of the job. It's a heck of a lot better than square feet. It is a measure of the conversion of raw material to finished goods. And the more value added you create, the more value you can squeeze out of every labor dollar, the more throughput you earn, and that flows directly to your bottom line. It does recognize the impact of special features, like mitered edges. Two jobs of exactly the same square feet, one has an eased edge, the other has a mitered edge. There's a world of difference between the labor content, but square feet's the same. Throughput recognizes that, square feet would not. It also recognizes the effect of the raw material variance. An uva tuba versus an exotic stone is recognized by throughput, would not be in square feet. Click the slide, please. And the second reason, and the most important reason we use throughput rather than any other dimensional method, is that it is directly related to financial goals. We can know if we do this preparation work up front and we know how many throughput dollars we need to produce every day and cumulative through the month, we will know what financial objective we can meet. And therefore we track it every day. we can know that we're on target to make the financial goals. And if we know, just 5 or 10 days into the month that we're behind our goal, then that's the time to take action. And we do so. If you wait till the end of the month, it's too late. Also, we produce what's called the productivity score, which is a single number that is able to be shared with everybody. So your entire company can know what the goal productivity score is and how we're doing every day and how we're doing cumulative for the month. We got everybody on the same sheet of music so you can take action.
And I'm going to ask a loaded question here.
All right.
So I can see the value of doing a $T. And if you're talking to one person on the call versus another person on the call, if they allocate the raw material, let's say a full slab to a job, but they're only doing a vanity top versus one that puts that value of that leftover piece back into their inventory and only accounts for it, their $T is going to be different than someone that uses the full slab and costs the whole piece out. How do you handle that?
Well, that's an inventory control process, and we get very much into that. So if it's a stock material, so you're going to be able to use that material again someday for somebody else, the common thing we do is what we call the half slab approach, which means if the amount that we put back in inventory, the remnant that we put back, is greater than 1/2 slab, we put it back in inventory with value. If the remnant we have left beyond a certain minimum size is less than 1/2 slab, we put it back in inventory without value. If you do whole slab now and you switch to the half slab approach, you just improved your inventory control accounting by 50%. So that's a significant amount. Now, you can get much more precise than that. You can get it down to the square foot of material that you use because you certainly buy it per square foot. But it allows you to balance out the effect of that. The next job that you do, you pull a half slab out of inventory. If the first job required 2 slabs because you only needed a slab and a half, the second job you're able to apply a half slab that came out of inventory with value so that you minimize the error factor. There are lots more detail to that question, John, but that's a high level answer.
Okay, great.
2 terms I'll get to. It's a little after 4, so I know we need to end quickly. Productive capacity is simply the capacity required to produce what you sell. And you got to have at least that much. And you can measure that in square feet, as you probably know what your machinery can produce. And we also have learned to convert that to throughput dollars. The capacity of your system, not each individual step, but the capacity of your system is determined by the weakest link, the constraint of the system, which we need to optimize it and assure that it's beating at a consistent, predictable, methodical capacity. That's called productive capacity. Click the slide, please. The term that we've learned to optimize is called protective capacity. So protective capacity is the capacity required to overcome variability, Murphy, or statistical fluctuations. Resource contention, which means, John Kaplan can do 5 different jobs really well, but we need him only on one of them. So we can't use that skill set on the other jobs. That's called resource contention. And we'd want to be able to make it so that we could use John's capacity, his skill set on the other areas where we needed him. And it is available, protective capacity is available with existing resources. I've been doing this 25 years, and I've never had the occasion where I had to ask a client company to spend money, to hire people or buy equipment in order to create protective capacity. It's generally in place just the way you manage it. That little Roadrunner figure in the right corner is the mentality around protective capacity. Roadrunner has two speeds, wide open and stop. So we want every resource to produce as full capacity as rapidly and with quality consciousness as possible to meet their need, and then stop. Don't produce more of what you don't need, and move around then to another location in the operation to where capacity is needed. Much more on that whole topic, but I assume I need to draw to a close because it's after 4.
Well, thank you, Ed. And this is just a rollout of our Operations Ambassador program. We're going to be getting into a lot more detail and just surround our calls and our operations, specifically for the operations team. We're going to be rolling that out. This was an introductory to that, so we're going to be reaching out. You're going to be hearing from myself and Amanda to get everybody's contact information so we can schedule these calls better for the operations teams. And then we're going to be rolling out the finance teams as well. So stay tuned on that. I want to just take a couple minutes to just remind everybody to take a look at our website for the upcoming New Orleans event. We actually just sent out a survey, which we're looking real closely. Obviously, we talked about the coronavirus and the issues there. So we're going to be taking we're taking a survey right now. So if everybody can respond to that, so we can get a pulse of this event. And the survey is whether we should continue with our meeting or should we postpone it and push it back and work to maybe having a fuller, better meeting, push it back in the year. We assume this coronavirus scare will kind of wean itself out over the year. So we want to take a pulse from the group on that. So please RSVP or fill out the survey, please, on that. And I want to thank Ed. We got a full curriculum. Ed's going to be working with the operations teams and getting a deeper dive into all these topics. And we sent out a full curriculum for the year that includes both our webinar calls plus the face-to-face meetings we're going to have. Encourage you to bring your operations teams, and then we're going to have carve-out roundtables with Ed facilitating Synchronous Flow and in those meetings face-to-face as well. So thanks again, everybody, and we appreciate it. And we'll probably also get out a process on how to better handle the GoToMeeting conference so we get through the technology. Have a great day, guys.
Hey, John, do you know if